consistency beats intensity. I could put a turkey in the oven for 900 degrees for 1 hour or for 3 hours at 300 degrees. They're both going to get cooked. One is going to get burnt.
My mom would always get on me. So she was like, why don't you speak like you write? I didn't have an answer at the time, but really I was trying to fit in with the environment.
Living in a default loop, not being present and attentive and curious about what's happening, but living by design is I'm active, I'm present, I'm questioning, I'm curious about this process as well as the progress.
Hey, welcome back to Hindsight, the podcast. I'm Lee Jones, your host. Today, I'm joined by David B. Prosper, also known as the Clarity Guy. David is a clarity architect, leadership coach, and author of Finding Clarity, Your Guide to Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity. He helps leaders, founders, entrepreneurs, and high performers break out of burnout, confusion, and what he calls the default loop. David, welcome to Hindsight, the podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. That was a solid intro. Thank you so much for having me.
Thankfully, you have an easy enough name. I always stumble over people's names, and we work through it in the green room. We try to talk about it. Hey, how do I pronounce it? And then when I get on, I always fumble it. So one, thank you. Well, thank your parents for having a nice, easy, simple name. And then two, I'm excited about what we're going to talk about. But how are you doing today? You said you're doing good?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Where you calling in from? And be clear about that, Clarity, Mr. Clarity.
Mr. Clarity. Salt Lake, Utah, in the beautiful mountains. Wow. How about yourself?
Yeah. I'm in California right now.
Okay.
In California, but from the East Coast. So military brought me over to California, and here I still am. So there you go.
Let's go. Not too far.
I know it's not too far. And I tell you what, I was just going to jump into the questions, but since you mentioned Utah, good Lord, I just want to drive up there. I know it's a few hours from where I'm at. I'm in Southern California to get all the way out there, but it just looks so beautiful. So you're the man on the ground. Is it as beautiful as I think it is?
Pictures don't do it enough justice. They don't do it enough. Because what happens is when you get to experience it, because you can see it and you're like, oh, that's beautiful. But when you're in it, it's that immersion. It's like, wow, this is beautiful. Yeah. So pictures don't do it enough.
Are you familiar with Sedona, Arizona?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so me and my wife, we want a trip from a radio station, right? And we won a trip to go to the Grand Canyon. So they flew us out, did everything, and we stayed in Sedona. And when you walk out of the room and just in that environment, it's just like you are in a postcard. It's just so beautiful. And to your point, you can't really describe. You can take pictures and it looks great, but when you're there, that energy, that feeling, anyway, I need to go back.
Let's go. Arizona it is.
Arizona it is, but I got to get to Utah first.
Okay.
I got to get to Utah
It's
first.
right before you get to Arizona. You drive through Utah, you get to Arizona.
Oh, really? No.
You can. You take a roundabout way. But not.
Okay.
Okay, I
take
a little detour.
All right. So this is Hindsight, the podcast. So really briefly, if you don't mind, I said some great things about what it is that you're doing and the space that you're in right now. But just tell us just a little bit about who you are. Were you at some point not clear? The clarity wasn't there? Like, what made you become this person who you are today?
That's a good question, Lily. I would say first and foremost, I'm a child of God, and that's who I am. And I get to live this life honoring Him. And when I think about the things that I do, I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, a guide, I'm a mentor. But those are the things that are just my titles that I can always change. That's not really who I am. First and foremost, just a child of God. But your question as far as the pivot point was back in 2016 when I saw my mother on her deathbed and she was crying and she was like, I wish I did enough. I wish I did enough. And my mother was ambitious. She was educated. She was this Haitian immigrant who came into this country, modeling St. Pierre to give her children this opportunity of the American dream. But one thing that I noticed of when my mom was saying, I wish I did enough, and she was crying, was the clarity gap. Because she knew where she was, but she didn't know her next right step to get to where she wanted to. So it's literally has been 10 years. She passed 10 years ago. So it's been 10 years since I've been on this journey of how do I help people find their next right step so their next right step become their best right step, and it becomes a clarity compound effect, and that they get to the life that they're designing versus a life that they're living by default.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. When you're faced with your mortality, you start to question,
Yeah.
the things that you chose, the importance of things, and where you put your priorities at. And I think about that, and I tell you what, it's really hard when you're in the moment, when you're here, when you feel invincible, right? It's really difficult to sit down and get clarity on what your priorities really should be or what you believe your priorities are, right?
Yeah.
So what do you say to someone who is, right now, just talk to us right now. Like, what do you say to something like that? Because we don't want to wait till the end and start thinking about it. We kind of want to, I think, maybe we don't, but I think we'd like to get some clarity now. So what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
That's such a good question, and it's a deep one because it it forces us to think about the future while we're in the present. And sometimes
Hmm.
when we're thinking about the future, it creates anxiety. So the question that I'll ask, like if someone's listening, is if your life stayed the same for the next 5 years, would you be okay with that? And that's what I ask my clients or prospects who sign up coaching with me is, if nothing changed about your current situation, would you be okay with that? And if the answer is no, then let's start subtracting stuff, because the biggest misconception about clarity is that you have to have it all figured out. You have to know the outcome. But just like if I was driving to California, is where you're at, I only have to focus on the roads in Utah. Then when I get to Nevada and then so forth, and then when I get to California, then I focus there. So I at least know the direction I'm going, and I know my next right step. So for those
Yeah.
individuals who are wrestling with, I know something feels off. Is probably is something that feels off. And now the question is, what are you willing to release in this season to get what you need in the next season?
Yeah. Yeah. That's an interesting question because, well, I was just thinking, you got to, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to other things, right?
Yeah.
And then when you go through life and you get to a point, you're like, oh, wow, I probably should have said no to a lot of these things. They really didn't move the needle any. So I definitely appreciate that focus on what needs to be focused on. Hey, so you talk a little bit about achievement and fulfillment. Like, at what point did you realize that achievement and fulfillment were not the same thing? And what's the
Oh,
difference?
oh. So achievement
Uh oh.
is it's a performance, right? So I played college
Yeah.
football, and one of the things, like when we achieved like championships and we won, but if but there were seasons where I was on the bench and I wasn't as active in the game. So yes, I was happy that we won and we got a championship and I could put it on my jacket. But the
Yeah.
fulfillment piece was, how did I contribute? So achievement, I see it as a performance metric. It's like I did X. Fulfillment is purpose. Did I use my gifts in achieving that? Did I contribute in a way that I'm designed? So oftentimes there are really exceptional people, high performers who are doing great things, but they're not living by design. They're not living in their true gifts or
Yeah.
contributing in a way that is an alignment to them. And I know that can sound like hyperbole and just like, oh, using all these
Mm.
jargons. I'm I'm a charismatic speaker. I can speak to crowds. I had a boss tell me, Prosper, you're really not good at Excel. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I hate it. That's not my thing. But I can train you guys. I can coach. I can do all those things. So it's like we won as a team, but I was doing quotes for an insurance broker and I absolutely hate it. I was good at it, but I wasn't great at it. And it didn't come naturally
Mm.
to me. So when we think of achievement, it's like it's a scoreboard, right? But when we think about a
Yeah.
fulfillment, it's that internal compass of, do I feel grounded? Do I feel that sense of I've contributed something? I've made something better? Do I feel that I'm using everything inside of me? Or am
Yeah.
I half-assing it?
every time you're funny because you say a thing like right at the end. You know how a boxer is boxing and then at the end they throw that flurry so they can win the round?
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll throw a little nugget in there that makes my mind just start to go in these different directions. And it just reminded me of when I was in the military and we would be doing push-ups. And the thing that the sergeant or the drill sergeant, depending on what phase you are in your military career, would say, don't cheat yourself, right? Don't cheat yourself. You got a whole lot more strength in it and you're giving yourself credit for. You're letting your mind take over and say, hey, I'm tired or I'm done. So don't cheat yourself. You got a lot in you people out there who are watching right now, and just utilize that. Don't sell yourself short. So I appreciate that perspective. Hey, so all right, now I'm gonna go back. So you talked about playing football and achievement versus fulfillment. How did you really feel when you weren't playing? Like we achieved, like yay, but side eyeing a little bit, maybe. Like how did you really feel? Like I wanted to be in the game, coach. Or how was that for you? And when did you realize? And maybe you didn't. Maybe you don't need to, but that mindset that you had or that perspective, because just because you're not playing in the game, you could be rooting the players who are playing, you can be cheering them on, you can be seeing things that they're not seeing. But when did you realize that shift, that difference? When did you realize it for yourself? Like, I need to look at this differently.
Yeah, that's a good question. And first, I want to say thank you for your service. You talked about the military. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Let me sit up straight now.
Yeah, because it's people like you who allow people like me to play college football without worry. So thank you. And I one of the things, my mother was a pastor growing up, and as a child, it used to annoy me and vex my soul. Like I would get angry when she would say this, but now it's the guiding principle of my life. She would always say as a kid to me, make yourself useful, make yourself useful. So like I would be, church would be over and she would be like, you just sitting around, make yourself useful, go find something to do. And as a college athlete, when I wasn't playing in the games, I was like, make yourself useful. If I'm not in the game, how can I contribute? Because I don't want to be a consumer. Because my mom was saying like, you either consume or you contribute. So when I wasn't in the game, I was motivating my teammates. I was like, okay, I know you're down. Hey, great play. Hey, I need you. What's your mindset like? So I was always a coach because that came naturally to me because my mother was a pastor. So when I wasn't active in the game, I would be coaching my teammates and saying, hey, great job. What's your mindset like? How are you doing? You good? All right. I need you to run harder. And it's just like, so I was a supporting cast. And what that taught me in the moment was like, there are people who are skilled and they're going to be great. And I played college and I got in the game, but I was second string. So how do I support the leaders ahead of me while being celebratory versus comparing myself? Oh, I want to do that. And then how do I stay ready so I don't have to get ready? So when my opportunity comes, I can show up when it actually matters. So those were the things that was happening on the field. And those ones, my junior year, I sung the national anthem and then I played in a game. And then my coach was like, hold on, wait a minute. You a singer? You a football player? Like what are you? I was like, I'm a man of many trades. I'm trying to contribute to how people experience what we have. So, but that was the shift of my mother reverberating those words, make yourself useful. Yeah. And those are my guiding principles now.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I can resonate with that. I can resonate. That resonated with me. That's to say it like that. That resonated with me. It's trying to use the right words. Hey, so you're very charismatic. Were you always this way throughout, childhood and coming up? Sounds like a great upbringing, and lots of good lessons from your mom. But were you always this? Just from me talking to you and looking at you right now, I'd say confident. Clear on what your purpose is. Were you always this guy?
No. I used to use a lot of ebonics because I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I highlight the beautiful parts that I was raised in. It was also very traumatic and toxic. Like it was a very volatile and I grew up in the projects. So what do you do in the projects? You fight, you steal, you do all those things. And I would see the people in my community always do it. I was I was part of it at some points of fighting. Um,
Mhm.
but I would see the kids. I don't know why. Like as a kid, I would see the kids I would hang out with, and I'm like, "Hey, cuz, what it is, what it?" And I was just like, "That doesn't sound cool." And then I would hear like somebody who was really articulate, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I like how they." And then I would go to different motivational conferences, and I would see how people would move based off how
Wow.
people said things. And then when I would listen to my mother speak, and she spoke Creole and French, how she would articulate and how she would pause. And I was always fascinated by how to move people with language. And English is my
Yeah.
second language, Creole is my first. So
Mm.
having that barrier, I was like, I want to learn to speak like that. I want to learn to speak like that. And then it was my sophomore year in high school, my English teacher, he would teach us these big vocabulary words like conundrum and debacle and egregious. And he would be like, "You gotta be egregious, Mr. Prosper. You have to
Oh.
feel it." And I was like, this old guy is on some stuff right now. But he was so
Yeah.
passionate about language
Mm.
and how to speak and enunciate. And I would mumble all the time. I'm like, and he was like, "Enunciate." And he would get in my face. I was like, this old white man about to get these paws. Uh, but it was him who
Wow.
who taught me the love for language. And in my sophomore year in college, I had a professor intro through humanities, and we would look at different images and pictures, and he would say, "Now
Mhm.
write about it. What is the artist trying to communicate to you?" So that professor
Wow.
taught me how to look deeply past what I see and interpret the context clues around. So those people in my life have literally shaped who I am today, and I'm incredibly grateful for them.
That sounds pretty okay. I'm glad I asked that question. Because it is a lot of people who come through. And I'll tell you, for me, my mom used to get on me for the way I spoke because I grew up in Baltimore,
Okay.
Maryland, and then Oxon Hill, Maryland. So that resonated again with me. I used to speak a certain way, and I still do because I just get lazy with it. But I used to speak a certain way, and my mom would always get on me. And she's like,
Mhm.
"Why are you talking like that?" But she knew because I was a good writer. I used to, I
Mm.
wrote when I was young and still now. So she was like, "Why don't you speak like you write?" I didn't have an answer at the time, but really I was trying to fit in
Yeah.
with the environment. You feel me? And then as far as writing, you knew the concepts and how to write. So it just made sense. So but my mom, she would always get on me when I say something slang or something that, bad grammar. But I'm like, you know what I'm saying? You know how I write. You know I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that. So the fact it resonated with me too. My mother would do the same thing, and she would be like, "You need to speak better." And then when I would go speak like that,
Yeah.
my friends was like, "Oh, you an Oreo, you an Oreo." I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
"You black trying to sell what?" I was like, "You mean educated?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was like, "I
They
read a
don't get
couple."
it though.
So the
Yeah.
fact that your mom did that, that's huge, and it's a testament
Yeah.
to who you are now.
I wish I had that teacher with the enunciation because I really struggled with that, and especially joining the military. Like everything was monotone. All right, let's go. Let's get, not really, not really. But when you're just talking, it's just information, data, data download. But now when I get out and I'm out of the military and I'm dealing with customers or dealing with other people and I need to sound a little bit more dramatic and emphasize things, I was short in that. There was a
Mm.
gap that I had to overcome. And I'll give you a quick example because you're so motivated, like you're bringing some stuff out of me. But I was working and I was sitting in there and I was running this one meeting with these clients. And when I left out, I'm thinking I did a heck of a job because here's the information. This is what they needed to hear. And the salesperson, he came to me and he was like, "Hey, Lee," he said, "you need to seem like you care more." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I do care." He said, I know you care because you put in the work, but you have to sell it." And I didn't get it at first until I got it. Right. So hearing you, I wish I had that teacher you had enunciate and bring impact to certain words. Right. So you can see how people move with the flow of what it is that you're trying to convey to them and get it. That's still a lesson that I'm working on. So
Mm.
thank you, one, for sharing that, because you see how I think when we were talking earlier, I wasn't this animated, but I'm feeling good now.
Let's
So
go.
so one, I appreciate that. Now let's go beyond a little bit. So you pay college, you're out of college now. What made you become the clarity guy?
It's a great question. I realized I'm a horrible employee in the after 60 days. And I'm great in the interviews 60 days in. I'm not
Yeah.
so good because I started looking on how things can be better. So my brain is wired to find the deficiencies and provide solutions. So oftentimes I would see the gaps in different areas, and um that was the work life. But more
Okay.
specifically, the clarity guide to your question was I was hiking up. I used to live in Colorado Springs, and I was hiking up the mountain, and I was like,
Okay.
God, what is my thing? Like Tony Robbins has this thing, John Maxwell has Les Brown, all these great giants. What's my thing? And he said clarity. And he was like, I need you to write a book. And I was like, who am I to write a book? I went through the whole thing like, I'm a son of an immigrant. We don't speak very good English. My grammar is not good when I'm writing. So I'm not a great writer. I have to learn how to become a good writer. Um, so it was like, okay, use your podcast. So I had a podcast, and then I started on the journey with the book. But one of the questions I asked myself was, when people leave me, how do they feel? When they leave being around me, how do they feel? What do they take away? And it hit me. It was like they get the aha moments. They get, oh, I didn't see it that way. Oh, I didn't think of that way. And I was like, so they get clarity. And then more and more, I was like, I've been interviewing, and I was different on different podcasts, and I heard this guy use an acronym. He was like, I'm the smart guy. I was like, I like that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to make it mine. And I was like, I'm the clarity guy. And the clarity guy isn't a self-title of, look at me, I am the all-knowing Oz, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's what people experience. And my life is a life of service to others. So the clarity guy is a lighthouse to where to go if you want to know. And that's where it all came from.
I I struggle with clarity. I think I struggle with clarity. And it's probably because now in this stage of my life, I'm a lot more in tune. Right. So say I say, hey, David, I need you to go and get me some, I don't know, apples. Right. And you come back with some apples, but I'm like, oh no, I wanted the delicious apples. Something as simple as, because I went to the grocery store yesterday. This is the only reason I'm using this example. I went to the grocery store and there were like 6 or 7 different types of apples. You know what I'm saying? So if I were to say, hey, go get me some apples, and then you bring me whatever, the 6th pair and not the second one, the delicious apples, then I'm like, why didn't you? I clearly told you what I wanted. And you're like, no, you just said get apples. So my point is, when that happens now, I reflect. I used to get mad, or I used to get upset, or I used to feel a certain way when my messages weren't being conveyed. But then I start thinking, well, how do I make sure that I'm giving a clear message without being overbearing with it, without, just acting like someone's stupid when I'm asking them to do something. So for someone like me, who I'm always, when the message is missed, I'm going in the mirror, I'm asking myself, well, how could I have made that communication more effective? What is a way that you could help me right now just to be more clear and effective in my communication?
Mm. When you're saying, I look in the mirror and reflect, all I could think of was Michael Jackson. I'm starting with me. I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways.
Get it.
So the question is, when I think and when I coach my clients how to communicate effectively, I think about, if if your if your voice and your words were creating a movie, how would you illustrate it? What would you use? And I would use visual words. So like, let me show you what I'm talking about. I said, show.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
I would use auditory words like, is that resonating with you? And then I would use kinesthetic words like imagine you're in the driver's seat. now you're actively in it. And then the second thing I think a lot of communicators don't factor in is you can do all of those things and people can completely miss it. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
what I've learned from one of my leaders was asking a clarifying question. What did you hear me say? And in that point, whatever you're communicating, then you get to reshuffle or paraphrase, because oftentimes the biggest misconception about communication is that it's taking place. So we say something and we think
Yeah.
people get what we say. It's like playing a game of charades. It's like we doing a gesture and they're just like, and you're like, no, it's the thing. And it's just like, what thing? It's the thing. You know the thing, you know. And we keep on saying it like Americans overseas. We just get
Yeah.
louder versus getting clearer.
Like it. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Or slower.
so it's like, do you? And it's just like,
The words is coming out of my mouth.
it's like, no one understands the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Oh, you on it. You on it. My man.
So it's creating a visual, an auditory, and a kinesthetic experience through the vehicle of language and words. And then simultaneously it's asking, what did you hear me say? Not in a condescending way, but a check.
That's what I was gonna bring up. Like, give me an example, because when you say, "Hey, so what did I just say to you?" And maybe you're saying to a peer or a superior or just anybody, right? A professional, someone you respect, but you want to make sure that they heard what you said. Like, how do you ask that that clarifying question?
Yeah. So one of my my teammates, when we have hard conversations, because I believe difficult conversations leads to deeper relationships. So one of my teammates, when she was dropping the ball, I'm like, this is going to be tough for you to hear, but we're going to get through this. And I would share my piece and she would get emotional and I'll say, okay, what did you hear me say? And then if she says, well, you don't think that, I suck. And I was like, no. I said this. I said this. So it's like, what did you hear me say? So we're on the same page. And I usually, because the phrase itself is condescending. So then we would have to change the tone. But I'm like, what'd you hear me say? And it's like, that's condescending. It's like, I just want to understand. What did you hear me say? It's very calm. It's very slow. And it's just like, well, I heard you say this. But it was like, no, let me recorrect it. Or yes, I did say that. And here is my intent. And I believe when we clarify, it brings understanding. And even in difficult situations, if we can understand what it is, then we can move forward with whatever it is. So it's just the tone.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. I just had a conversation this week, as a matter of fact, with my team, and I had to get a little hard on them. And I wasn't really being hard. I was just being truthful about a thing. And so I could see their, shoulder slump a little bit. And these grown people, like, being disconnected. And I know from my own personal experiences, when you start doing this, your mind is telling you a bunch of stuff, right? It's telling you, well, this guy don't know anything what he's talking about, or I was right in everything I said and did, and whatever it is, instead of actually being open. And I really agree with you that when you have those difficult conversations, it makes for better relationships, right?
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure that there's clarity. And so for me, what I missed on that in that opportunity was to ask that clarifying question. I didn't ask it, but I could see how they were responding. And then I just gave them, like, this is what I'm seeing. This is from my perspective, what I'm seeing. And if I'm wrong, then let me know. I said, but always remember that when I am telling you this stuff, because you guys told me that you got tough skin. So I'm going to tell you what I'm seeing. So I need you to accept it and understand that I'm only trying to do this for us all to become better. That is the goal. And I'm saying that from day one to my team. It's all about being better. So I need you to have tough skin at sometimes, and I need you to be prepared for praise, whatever it is. So that having those stronger relationships, one, you got to be comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations. And then two, I love the clarifying question. I need to put that in my repertoire. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I learned that a couple of years ago, and it's literally changed the game, because I've been a leader since I was 21 years old. in corporate America. Um,
Mhm.
but one of the things I would assume, like leaving meetings, like everybody okay? You know, any questions? That's another stupid question. Any
It is.
questions? Any questions? No
Mhm.
one says anything because it creates a negative connotation of do you have any friends? Do you have any money? So no one's going to ask that. So what I ask my team is, what is challenging about what I said? What is difficult?
Yeah.
What seems overwhelming? So it's literally guiding them and leading them to think more clearly versus assume that they're thinking clearly. And then that clarifying
Mhm.
question gets you on the same page versus like, yeah, I told them what I wanted. And then you leave, going back to your apples metaphor. I told them I want
Yeah.
the Honey Crisp apples. And they said,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
back with some oranges. And you're like, wait a minute. It's like, well, there wasn't Honey Crisp apples. So I decided to get oranges. It's like, no. That's what happens oftentimes in communication when we don't
Mhm.
clarify that.
Mhm. Yeah. But I'm a stickler. So when you said in that specific situation, I kind of like that. They didn't have this, so I got this instead. I didn't come back empty handed because I want to take care of you. I know you're hungry for some fruit. God dang it. So, so I bought you some oranges. Is that okay? Right. That's a good relationship right there. Uh,
It's like, I'll take the oranges. I wanted Chris apples, but thank you though.
you know, clearly asked for some. Anyway, got it. So, hey, now I want to get into you. So you clarity guy, great advice from mom, teachers, everybody, right? When you're looking at it from right now and just looking back, right? I'm not saying everything was perfect, but what is something as you started looking in the mirror, becoming the man in the mirror, what was some hard truths that you had to admit to yourself about yourself?
Hmm. Now we're gonna go deep and vulnerable. I love it. Um,
Yeah.
I wasn't. I had to look in the mirror and say I wasn't a man of integrity for a very long time. On the
Mm,
outside, I would play and do the song and dance. Again, I'm a son of a pastor, so I was really good at performance, but I was not all the way in line in internally. So I would I was I used my gifts for bad. So
mm,
I'm very influential, I'm very charismatic, and I can sell water to a well. And I would use things and make people do things that served me. So when I
mhm,
started to heal, I'm like, okay, I was in a man of integrity. What do I need to do? I need to my inside need to match my outside, and my outside need to match my inside. Um, and okay,
yeah,
God's given me this gift of speaking and moving people and creating movements and getting people to be bought in. But I was using it like, what's it gonna do for me? Like, how am I gonna get mine?
mhm,
Um, and I had to heal and I had to give it to God and say, God, like you've allowed me to have this impact. You've allowed me to have this reach. You've allowed me to have this influence. Help me to use it in a way that honors you and not honor me. And that was like, it was a turning point. I remember crying to my mom when she was alive. I was like, Mom, I'm a horrible guy. I was like, I don't
mm,
want my nieces to marry a guy like me. I don't want my nephew to be like me. I was like, I'm on the surface,
yeah,
everything looks good. People are like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. You're so this. I was like, inside, I was like, oh, I'm a villain.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
having that moment of realness and vulnerability was like, I need to do better. Um, and it's an ongoing thing. It's not like a one-stop shop because as the influence increases and the notoriety increases, the power increases, what happens more and more, the ego comes knocking more at the door and say, hey, you can get
mm,
this, you can get this, you can get this. And what truly keeps me anchored is like at the end of the day, I want to be more like Jesus.
yeah,
And him being keeping me grounded has allowed me to like stay the straight and narrow.
yeah. Wow, I tell you what, I'm not even gonna lie, that almost brought tears to my eyes, and I still feel a certain way because I felt that way too, and I
Mhm.
sometimes feel that way, like the villain, like I'm a bad guy, and I think it's because like all of us, we live in our bodies our entire lives. So and no matter what good you see on the outside, you understand and know everything about you. The things that you did that were selfish, the things that
Yeah.
you did that were lazy or sloppy or whatever the case may be, or deceptive, whatever it was. Like you got your entire repertoire of techniques and skills inside of you, and you've known how you use them, and I know how I've used them. That's why I said I wanted to cry, because I feel that way as well. And uh, uh, and and I want to bring this out because a lot of times we don't share that,
Yeah.
right? We don't share it, especially if you, the clarity guy, right? Who would want to share that? But that's the point. Like, it's so many people who feel this certain way,
Yeah.
but you're not a bad person. You
Yeah.
know, yeah, you may have done some things selfishly in the past to achieve things, but it doesn't mean you're a bad person overall,
Yeah.
right? What do you think about that? I'm just because I felt the same way. That's why it hit me when you said it. Like I felt a chill going through me.
Yeah, because and I appreciate you asking that question. I've never been asked that. It's a real thing, and
Yeah,
usually, especially on podcasts and different platforms, we can show the mountaintop, but we rarely highlight the valleys, or we skim through the valley to get to the mountain. But as far as being a
yeah.
good person or a bad person, um, it's a weird concept. I don't believe that
Mhm.
there's good and bad people. I believe there's
Interesting.
people who practice good and or healthy behaviors and unhealthy behaviors, because it
Okay.
allows me to have grace for people to actually change. And my father was one of the greatest representation of that. He went to jail for 12 years, and
Mhm.
he came out saying like this was a rehabilitation. So
Yeah.
be accepting that label of I'm a bad person, it's like an identity. So we just like, all right, I'm a bad person. I'm just going to be the bad person. But I believe
Mm,
there are healed people and there are hurt people. And when
yeah.
people are healed, they operate from healing. And when people are hurt, oh, they will do things that they are trying to
Yeah.
run away from the pain, or make the
Yeah.
pain stop, or avoid some type of painful thing. So, yeah, I agree. I don't believe we're bad people. It's just, have we done the healing?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, we got deep there for a little bit.
Hey,
No, but that's what it's about, right? Because a lot of times, like you said, we can talk about the mountaintops and everything, but we want to meet people where they are.
yeah,
And everybody's not at the mountaintop. And sometimes you want to look and be like, man, that's a beautiful mountain. I'd love to get to the top. But I'm right here at the summit. Or I'm right here in the middle, right? So
hmm,
how do I get there? And that's where the healing, that's where the growth, that's where all that stuff starts. So
yeah,
I'll come on here and people say, man, you were really vulnerable. Yeah, because that's what people need to hear. Like we all going through the same stuff in
yeah,
different stages and phases and seasons in our lives. But we want to internalize it because we feel alone in going
hmm,
through it. So let's be clear.
yes,
I like using that, man. We're all going through the same things, from, here and there.
oh,
All right, so you talk about the default loop. What's the default loop,
mm.
and how do you break it?
The default loop is what we've inherited in our lives. So we're doing the same things, but not really present in what we're doing. And we've accepted different dogmas, mentalities, cultural uh, upbringing, and we're not asking questions. So how do we break the default loop?
Mm,
Is by asking questions. It's by being curious. So one of the things I've noticed with my clients when they're in a spiral, and I get the calls when people are in crisis, when it started at 13 years old when my father called me and the FBI was looking for him, and he had a 9 millimeter gun and he was going to take his life. So like, how do I break that default loop in that spiral that somebody's going to get into to get them out of that crisis mode? I start by asking them questions like, so tell me how you feeling. Well, I feel this. And then I was just like, okay, so where's that coming from? And then what happens is the more curious we become about the thing, the more we realize that thing wasn't ours. And it's
yeah,
projections, it's perceptions. And one of the biggest things that I get to walk with people in is the public perception, the prison of public perception. And it's this thing. So I'm going to do and be everything so that other people can accept me and don't think that I'm a
Mm-hmm.
loser or this weird person. So that's the default loop. It's doing things to accommodate, to assimilate, to be like a chameleonaire for everyone. And I remember hearing this comment from people. It's like, I'm like, everyone likes me. I'm like friends with everyone. If that's a true statement, then you fake as heck. Um,
Yeah.
because what
Yeah.
happens is if you're living in authentic, like if you're living by design, then there's going to be some people who's going to be off-putted by it, and that's okay. So
Yeah.
living in a default loop is doing things, going places, and not being present and attentive and curious about what's happening. It's just like when we're driving to work and we're not really thinking
Mhm.
about where we're going, and we get there, we're like, how did I get here? We weren't present. We were focusing on other things. But living by design is I'm active, I'm present, I'm questioning, I'm curious about this process as well as the progress.
Mm. Now, you gave a great example. You answered the question, but now I want you to go just a little bit deeper on this one. How can someone tell that they are living in a default pattern?
It's just like that's a good one. It's just like when we go to the hospital or we go to the urgent care. We usually see the
Mhm.
symptoms before we actually see the root cause. So the symptoms you'll notice if you're living in a default loop is irritable, very quick, unreasonably irritable. Because if you don't eat, anybody's irritable, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You're not living in default. You just
yeah,
need a Snicker. Um,
yeah.
the second thing is just
That's
like
it.
the lack of fulfillment. The third
Mhm.
thing is you start finding yourself comparing yourself to people more often.
Mm,
The fourth thing is we consume more. When someone's sad and they're depressed, they're consuming more. So when we're not creating and we're consuming, we're in that default loop. And then
mm.
another way of understanding is like we're more critical than celebratory. So if someone is saying something, it's like, well, but how do you know? It's like, no, I just got my diploma. It's like, so
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to get a job out there. We're in a war. It's just like, hold on,
yeah,
wait a minute. So when and ultimately, when our energy is like the frequency, the home of our emotional space is just heavy, we're living in a default loop. And you'll hear these phrases, oh, thank God it's Friday. Oh, that's a default loop right there. Thank
damn, I
God
just
it's.
said that.
I'll just say it. I'm gonna throw that out there. People, if because it's thank God it's every day because you're
Yeah,
living in the way that you're designed, and Friday doesn't stop
yeah,
the progress. Friday is a part of the progress. So it's and then you'll also notice when people are living in a default loop they're more married to the outcome than the process because they think that the outcome is going to give them fulfillment versus the
mm,
process actually bringing them joy and growth. So it's like, well, if I just
yeah,
achieve this, if I get this position, oh, that's a default loop.
yeah,
Because once you get it, you
mm,
realize there's another ceiling. Once you make
yep,
more money, you realize you're going to have more expenses and you have to.
yeah,
So it's this ever loop of I'm looking for this external thing to validate this internal thing. And it's never satisfying. Nothing becomes satisfying. So relational satisfaction goes down. Job satisfaction goes down. Social satisfaction. They're just the individuals in this life. And I was that guy.
yeah,
Nothing is
yeah.
fulfilling. And I can't be grateful for anything in my life.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I did say, I admit, I did say, thank God it was Friday. This past Friday, it was a long week, and I needed some rest. And I wanted to. I was happy. Maybe I was saying it because I was like, well, I'm going to talk to David this weekend, so I thank God it's Friday, right? I was still being purposeful. I was still being
Yeah.
meaningful in that aspect. So I'll turn it like that. But no, I really appreciate that because there are a lot of times when I believe we are in a loop, a default loop by things you said from our journey, from our
Yeah.
lives, and things that other people put into us, or maybe propaganda from the news media, or whatever it is that's hitting you all through your life. One, it starts with your parents, what they instill in you, their religions, their beliefs, all of that stuff. It just goes with you, and you just grow up and you have it. So understanding that some of those things are good things that you should have, and some of them are dead weight that you need to just let go of, and get your own clarity of the situation and get out of that default loop of reacting a certain way because a certain thing happens.
Yeah.
I do that a lot now. The biggest one, the easiest one for everyone to try today is to really pay attention to your responses when you're driving.
Say
That's
more.
easy. If you drive, you know what I'm saying? And I practice that a lot. I'm like, why am I getting mad? And just recently I'm saying, you know what? This is a great day to practice patience.
Mm.
There's a lot of cars out here. I can try to zing through them because I'm in California. Speed limit is 70. I don't know what it is in Utah, but it's like 70 and 75 miles an hour. So we're all going 80, 85, 90 at any given time. It just is what it is. But but sometimes it slows down and you're like, oh, why is this jerk cutting me off, or whatever the case may be. But what's funny for me, and this is why I say I practice this all the time, I recognize that sometimes I cut people off. And I don't do it intentionally. Sometimes I just didn't see them. Sometimes I'm in a hurry to get someplace, right? And I'm trying to be safe, but I'm trying to be fast too, so I can get there quicker. Joel Osteen was talking specifically about this, about someone driving and they cut you off and they ruin your whole day. You're pissed off from the beginning of the morning throughout day. You take that negative energy with you throughout your day. And that person isn't even thinking about you. So why are you giving them all that energy? And I started thinking about that. What happened? Why am I reacting this way? Is it because I saw someone else react that way? And that's the default loop that I'm in for this particular situation. Do I have to choose to be mad in this specific situation? Or can I choose to just be like, my goodness, they didn't clip me, and I can just continue on my journey. You have a choice. You have a choice either way. So I appreciate the default loop, and I want to hear a little bit more. Where's a good place where you could practice it from your perspective? Something that's simple, like, because this is where you start training yourself. You're not going to always see it in these complex situations where you really need to go in and dissect your life and see how things happen. But there are simple moments and things in life where you can start practicing, and then you'll start to see these other things develop. But do you have any other ones?
Yeah, I like the way, I like how you refer to Joel Osteen as talking about messing up your entire day, and we give so many people the energy. And it made me think of The Matrix, and it's the red pill where
It's my favorite movie.
you fight the system, and then the blue pill, I believe, where you just go back to the system. I talk about the clarity pills. It's like, how do you navigate with the systems? But you're saying, how can you create a training module? Because you're we're in the military,
a
not
construct. Since you want to use
right?
since you want to use Matrix, right?
Yeah,
Then
so
go through and practice.
How do you practice? And the biggest outlets I see is exercising. Because the other day I went on, my goal was like, I'm gonna run a mile, and I have the weighted vest on, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna run 3 of a 5K. And I got to 5K, and then I'm like, you know what, since I'm already there, I'm gonna run another one. But as I was running the last mile, everything in me was like, give up. You're tired. No one's going to see you. No one's going to know that you worked out or not. Like, so the mental training of, no, just take one step, one breath in the right direction. One step, one breath.
Yeah.
And then another training I do is like cryotherapy or cold plunges. So like my brain and my body is reacting to this high stress situation. And I have to force myself to breathe, to move from my amygdala to my prefrontal cortex to reason, like, in light of the past experiences, what's the wise thing to do? And that's what clarity is. It's not what the right thing or the wrong thing. What is the wise thing to do? Because what's wrong for me may be right for you, and what's wrong for you may be right for me. but what's the wise
Yeah.
thing to do? So if we can put ourselves in these rhythms and practices of exercising and challenging ourselves, not like hurting ourselves, but I see taking
Mhm.
long runs or a sprinting session or even cryotherapy or red light and then putting ourselves in intense cold for in a duration of time. Just like, hey, how can I calm my mind down? Because the default loop wants you to be comfortable. And default loops wants you to
Mhm.
conserve energy. Just like why work out? There's no point in that. Why go do this? Don't
Yeah.
I'm I'm expanding my business and the default loop is knocking at the door and saying, who are you to do this? Like, why don't you just stay with what's
Mm.
comfortable? What you don't need to venture off. Like you're good. But the
Yeah.
design loop is
Yeah.
like, what can I create? So if we're consuming, we'll find ourselves more in that. If we're consuming more than we're creating, we're in the default loop. If we're creating more than we're consuming, we're in the design loop.
Thank you for the clarity.
My pleasure.
I can use clear and clarity all day. I love it. No, and I definitely appreciate that. I never looked at the consuming and creating loops like you've explained them today. So I appreciate that. And now we want to help people out here listening, and the people who are listening includes myself. All right. So I'm always in here selfishly to get some lessons learned and to help me be more clear and to be more just to be more, period. Right. So I just want to say, for someone who out there who feels burnt out, unclear, or quietly they're stuck, what is the first step towards clarity?
Hmm. This is going to be profound. And you're going to be like, I listened to this entire podcast just to get what my mom's been telling me this all my life. Clean your room, clean your
Mm-hmm.
spaces. Oftentimes
Mm,
when we clean our physical spaces, it gives us the mental capacity to start looking at other things. So clean your physical space and then clean your emotional space. And that looks like forgiveness, which is one of the hardest
yeah.
things to do. Um, and releasing all those guilt, shame, bitterness, releasing those things. Then the byproduct, like I was telling one of my clients last week, I was like, if you forgive, the byproduct of forgiveness is peace and joy. She's like,
Yeah.
what? No. I was like, trust me. Once you forgive,
Mm,
the byproduct is that. So if somebody's feeling burnt out, they're usually holding on to things that are not theirs. So do some relational auditory or audits and find
auditing.
out
Yeah.
what needs to be released in this season. And maybe next season you pick it back up, but maybe this season is not yours.
All right. So here's the big question. Boom. You ready?
I'm ready.
I want you to think about this before you answer it. I want you to get some clarity and I want you to feel it inside of you. Hey, but what do you know now that you wish you knew back then? Then could be at any point in your journey before now.
Mm, that's a good one. That's making me think.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say the biggest thing, if I, well, I wish I know now, or I wish I know then, was
Then.
consistency beats intensity.
Mm,
Consistency
mm,
beats intensity. Um, I could put a turkey in the oven for 900 degrees for 1 hour, or I could put a turkey in the oven for 3 hours at 300 degrees. They're both going to get cooked. One is going to get burnt in the process, burn out, and the other one's going to be done as it's created to be. So I'm
yeah.
learning consistency beats intensity with my workouts, with building systems. Consistency beats intensity.
I remember I was a young, scrappy young fellow, and I would go to the racquetball courts and I would play these guys who are probably my age now, right? And I would hit the ball so hard, right? Because I'm thinking that intensity, I'm going to tear this old man up. And they would consistently make it hard. They would consistently hit it where it would eventually wear me down. If I hit it low to the wall, between the wall and the floor, just low, he's going to have to run in and then we hit it back. They understood the system
Hmm.
and they consistently worked within the system where I was trying to just muscle through it.
Mhm.
So I appreciate that one because you can't always just muscle through everything. It's going to wear you out. You're going to be stuck. You're going to be burned out. The things we just talked about, right? You got to understand the system, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm still thinking about the Matrix, but you got to understand that and be consistent in your delivery.
Mhm.
And an amazing message. That was my racquetball rendition. But how would knowing that earlier have changed the way that you've handled pressure, ambition, and I guess the need to keep proving yourself?
I would have been kinder to myself in the process,
I
right?
like that. Yes.
And
Yes.
as a high performer, the biggest things like on the surface, we achieve these accolades and we get these trophies, but we've been so unkind to ourselves. Um,
Mm.
and my mentals would be sharper, and then my relationships would have been a lot healthier if I would have practiced consistency, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So if I'm intense in football or whatever sport I'm in, then now I take that same intensity in relationship. Oh, you didn't do this. You didn't do this. So I would come to my
Mhm, mhm.
romantic partners and have that level of intensity. Or if my friends weren't, you know, striving for greatness, I was like, you're so lazy, you piece of, right? So it's just like
Yeah.
those things, there's success and achievement on paper, but there's relationships that got burned along the way because I believe that I needed to be intense in everything versus I just needed to
Yeah.
be consistent in everything and just show up.
Yeah.
And sometimes progress looks differently every day. And if I
Yeah.
had that mentality, um, there wouldn't be a lot of people going to therapy because of me.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear you. That's yeah, taking ownership of that. It made me think about something Chris Rock said, and you talked about the relationships, and we do these grand gestures, and maybe it's more men because I'm a man and I can see it from that perspective. We do these grand gestures to win over a young lady, or partner, whatever that is, and then you fall off. And I remember Chris Rock talking about, oh, that person you met was their representative,
Yep.
right? That grand gesture. It's not the consistency. And so I always tell people, like, when you're getting into a relationship, do what you can consistently do. Don't set the expectation. If you're gonna buy flowers every Friday, then be prepared to buy flowers every Friday throughout this whole entire relationship. Don't set these expectations and then fall. Just be yourself. And if they're not there or they can't meet you where you are, then maybe that's not it. Maybe that's not the season. You guys can retrace it later on in life. We're always going to run back into each other at some point. That's just how it seems to work these days. But but be consistent. I love that
Yeah.
that message. Hey, David, you said you wrote a book.
Yeah. Finding,
Why'd you write a book?
why did I write it?
Why you write a book? Tell us about the book, why you wrote it, and what people can get from the book.
Okay. Well, I wrote the book called Finding Clarity because I've been pissed off. And I remember talking to this one guy on a podcast. I was like, how do you find your purpose? He was like, find what frustrates you. Your frustration leads
Mm,
to innovation. And I was like, okay, I'm pissed off. And so finding clarity in this book is is essentially wisdom, right? For those who are in the
mm.
faith sector, they'll see it as wisdom. For those who in the world, they'll be like, oh my goodness, this is very philosophical, and practical. So it's how to navigate life, because we can't stop lifing and bills aren't going to stop in relationship, but we can be very intentional. It's like putting on new glasses. So like what type of friends to look for? So now we're scouring,
Mm,
whatever we're seeking is seeking us. What type of people to limit access to? Okay. That way my energy isn't drained. And then where am I in this season? I always talk about seasons because I love the concept of farmers, because they're always preparing for the next season. So
yeah.
this book, Finding Clarity, helps individuals understand where they're at and then how to navigate from where they're at to where they want to be. And then it gives them the tools to start discerning what to look for that's healthy and discern what to look for that's unhealthy. And then based off those two things, I believe if we can teach people how to think, not just only what to think about, then they can be effective. It's like the method or the parable, teach a man how to fish, he eats for a day,
Mhm.
teach a man, or give a man a fish, he
No,
eats for the
yeah.
day,
Yeah.
and teach him how to fish, he eats for a lifetime. So finding
Yeah.
clarity is teaching individuals how to think and how to live a more clear life.
Hey, David, so where can the listeners find out more about you, and also where can they find the book?
Yeah. So on Amazon, and I'm on all social media platforms as the Clarity Guy. And my website is theclarityguy.co. And I would love to connect with you. So Instagram is where I live dominantly. But you go on every platform, it's the Clarity Guy.
Hey, David, thank you so much for joining me here on Hindsight, the podcast, sir.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. This has been fun.
I know that's right. And what stood out to me today is that clarity is not just about knowing your next move. It's about being honest enough to stop living on autopilot. So many people are chasing success, but they have not stopped to ask if the life they are building still fits who they are becoming. That is where hindsight matters. It helps us slow down, look back, and choose better moving forward. And to everyone listening, make sure that you subscribe to Hindsight the Podcast on YouTube or Apple Podcasts and grab your copy of my new book, From Here to There, where I talk more about growth, transition, and becoming who you are meant to be. And until next time, keep looking back with honesty so that you can move forward with clarity. Thanks again, David. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.